So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, we've got a real treat. I finally got someone super on the show. From Titans, Season 4 coming on the 3rd of November onto HBO Max and shortly after onto Netflix in the UK. We've got Joshua Orpin. Joshua, welcome to the show, sir.
Hi, thanks very much for having me. And as you say, a very aptly named podcast for me.
Do you know what? It was meant
much.
to be. It was meant to be. And the reason why I called my show Be More Super was two things. One is to find out what makes, actors and stars super. And then also my love of Superman, because literally I couldn't be more of a fan. I've got two little girls, one called Lois and one called Kara, after Supergirl and Lois Lane. So I am a massive Superman fan. So to have you on the show with all the amazing things that you're doing on Titans is just fantastic. It really, really is. So before we chat about the wonderful season to come, the last 2 years have been quite a dramatic 2 years, to say the least, worldwide with this pandemic. How have you kept positive and how have you kept moving forwards?
As you say, it was a very difficult time for everybody. I consider myself very, very fortunate. We were just about to head off to shoot season 3 of Titans when the pandemic hit, and really the worst that I suffered was that I was just locked in my house for a while. I knew that eventually after the delay we were going to shoot the season, so I had some work coming up, and I know a lot of people were going through a lot of emotional and financial stress during that time, but I just consider myself very lucky because that wasn't the case for me. And really the worst thing that I had to put up with was just being a bit bored, to be honest. But, I really can't complain, but I am glad to be out the other side of it.
And was you in Australia where you are now during the pandemic?
Yeah, I was just at home in Melbourne, and not sure if you're aware, but in Melbourne we did have quite a strict lockdown policy a lot of the time. So we were dealing with that, and my partner working from home, and all the complications that kind of arise from that situation. But as I say, like, I really can't complain too much. A lot of people had it worse than I did.
And Australia being very, very strict. I mean, everyone loves to watch that Border Force series on, about, the airports. It's fantastic to watch. It really is.
Yep.
Is it true? I've got to ask, is that you're never more than 10 feet away from something poisonous in Australia? Is that true?
I mean, I don't know. I can have a look around for you if
No,
you like. I don't see anything at the moment. I hope not. I, it's kind of cold. It's a little bit chilly at the moment, so I think I'm largely safe right now. It's usually summertime when it heats up a bit, where the snakes and the spiders kind of come out a little bit more. But 10 feet, geez, that reminds me of that. You swallow 8 spiders a night every time you're asleep in bed. I'm hoping that that's exaggeration.
Let's hope. So let's talk about how this journey started for you, because how does a boy from down under, become Superboy? I mean, was it a casting call? Did you have to fly over to the States? I mean, how did it all start on actually getting the role of Connor in Titans?
It was remarkably simple. I never had to travel anywhere. I didn't have to go to LA. I did what's called a self-tape. You may be familiar. It's basically you just set up a camera in your house somewhere, and they send you scenes, and you film the audition. I had my partner read the other half of the scene and send it off via email or whatever. And so basically I did one of those. And initially I wasn't sure what the role was. A lot of the time for projects like this, they come up with, it's called dummy sides, or they're fake scenes that are created for the purpose of auditioning so that you're not sending out spoilers, I guess. And the scene that I got was for a character called Ben, and they were interesting, dramatic scenes, but they didn't really give away who the character was that I was auditioning for. So I was very, very curious. But I did know it was for Titans, though. So I sent that off. I was told that, the tape was received well, which is always good to hear. They liked the tape. And then I found out that it was Superboy and I was in the running, and that was very shocking and surprising, and I was delighted to hear that. And also, I became very nervous. At that point, I was kind of starting to, ask my agent, should I be doing anything else? Exactly the kind of thing you were saying. Should I be auditioning again? Should I fly to LA? What do you think I should do? And she said, no, just sit tight, just wait. And a few weeks later, they called me and told me that I got the role, and it was really as simple as that. So
that is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. I mean, how much responsibility do you feel having that S on your chest? Because it's a massive thing. It really is.
it is, and the significance of that is not lost on me, and the legacy of that is not lost on me. It's initially it was simultaneously just a terrifying concept to me to be playing this character, but also incredibly exciting. And as the years have gone by and we've done more seasons, and I've kind of come into, I guess, more of a sense of ownership over the role, and I'm a little more comfortable with the character. I feel I know him very well. I've got a body of work behind me now. I've received, the responses from the fans, the various responses, and a lot of those responses were positive. Now that I'm in this place, I'm kind of feeling a little less nervous. I'm feeling a little less of that kind of just unbridled terror at the prospect of donning the S and living up to that legacy. But initially, very much so, it was daunting, to say the least.
I mean, we're used to seeing quite a standard sort of Superman on our screen. So when we see Connor, it's shaking it up a bit, which I love. So you get the role as Connor, but I can imagine all the versions of Superboy out there. There must be so many. It must have been quite overwhelming as an actor. So how did you settle on the version of Superboy as we see on screen?
Well, it's funny because exactly what you're saying. Like, when I was cast, all I knew was Superboy, you got the role. I had that little snippet from the end of season 1 to kind of give me an indication of maybe what direction they're going in. There was an after credits tease. But other than that, I really had nothing to go on.
So how much of what we see on screen is from the page, and how much is you? I mean, it's very hard as an actor when you see a character, and you've got to put a bit of yourself in these characters. So how did you do that? How much of that character of Connor is you?
It's a tough question because it's hard to quantify. I think there's always you find those commonalities. You bring yourself to the character, and you inevitably, those personality traits and the way that you think and the way that you feel will bleed into the performance. But I really have to give credit to the writers, especially on that first episode, season 2, episode 6, where we introduced the character. So much of that stuff was on the page, and it was just fantastic. I really loved reading that first script, and it gave me so much to work with there, and so much to build from. And I feel like the momentum that we generated in that first episode has carried me through all the way to where we are now in season 4. And I'm still benefiting from the great work that was on the page in that script in episode 6, season 2. So it's really difficult to say. I'd love to be able to tell you that, it's about 30% me, and it's impossible to quantify that. And as you play the character for this length of time, and as time goes on, I guess you start to know the character better, and more of you goes into the character, and more of the character also bleeds into you and your life too. So in many ways, I'm more like Connor than when I first started playing the character, as well as him, I guess, being more like me. So
Mm.
That's never
And
fair.
then I just thought, actually, you're the second person ever to play Superboy live action on screen. Against the young man that did it in Smallville, back in the day, which is pretty cool. So when you got the role, did you go and watch season 1? And what did you think? And how anxious were you before shooting season 2?
It's a funny story, actually. I told this. I was asked this at Comic Con recently, New York Comic Con, and Greg, the showrunner, was beside me when I answered the question, and he didn't recall the answer. But I had auditioned for season 1, and it was the same situation. I sent off a self tape for a role. I didn't know what the role was because the scenes were fake scenes with some random name that I assumed corresponded to a character on the show, but I had no idea who it was, and I never found out who it was because I didn't get the role. And there's this very silly kind of spiteful, bitter thing that I tend to do, where if I don't get the role for a show or get the role, I won't watch the show when it comes out. I'll just be like, I don't want to watch that. It will just remind me of the role that I didn't get, and I'll be disappointed and sad and bitter. So that was kind of the situation with season 1 of Titans. I didn't watch it when it came out because I didn't get the role, and that was unusual for me because I'm usually in the bag for all of this superhero stuff, and I probably would have watched it otherwise. But once I got the role of Superboy in season 2, that solved the problem quite immediately. So I jumped on. It's on Netflix here in Australia, so I jumped on Netflix and binged the whole thing, and really enjoyed it. I was very daunted again at the prospect of joining such a talented cast and a cool-looking show. Not to mention the weight of dealing with this intellectual property and these characters that are so beloved. So yeah, there were definitely some nerves. For me, nerves, the only cure for nerves is preparation. So I knew that I really had to do my homework and do my research and be as thoroughly prepared as I possibly could be. And that was the best way for me to combat those nerves on the day. And once the camera started rolling, ultimately, my first scene, my first day working on season 2, you get into the swing of things and those nerves dissipate, thankfully.
I mean, obviously the cast had been together for season 1, so what was it like to actually join an established cast? Did they make you welcome? How was that experience for you?
It was great, yeah. It was a big cast, and they did all know each other, and they were all friends, and it was a little bit daunting, but yeah, they were welcoming, and it was like a big family, for want of a better word. That's the term we always use in the show, and it kind of applies in this situation because I was kind of welcomed, and it was a strange, staggered start in many ways because that first episode that I was in, I was essentially the main character for that episode, and I didn't really interact with any of the other main cast. So I rocked up at work and I kind of met everyone and didn't meet any of the other main cast. So it was me and Crypto and a few other actors that were in that episode. And then after that, when I started shooting episode 7, I think it was, or maybe 8, then I met everybody. And that was kind of a big deal. But I guess what made it a little bit smoother, that transition, was that I had kind of become familiar with the sets and the crew and all the other elements that are in play, that I was comfortable enough to then have the cast introduced, and I was able to be myself and make friends and not kind of just, retreat into my turtle shell and not talk to anyone.
And now you're part of the furniture, as they say, which is awesome. So the majority of superheroes always get amazing outfits to wear. But rightly so, Superboy doesn't really have like sort of a suit of armor because he is made of armor. So let's talk about pressure. So you get this role and, you've got to work out. You've got to put the bulk on. You've got to look like Superboy. So what did you have to go through? What did you have to eat or didn't eat to get into Superboy, shape?
It was just a massive lifestyle change at the time, and I'm at a really good place with it now. Over the years, there's been a huge learning curve, and I'm grateful for the challenge of it. And where do I even begin? So, as you say, Superboy doesn't get a suit. He is the suit, really. You have to look the part. And I feel like it's part of my job as an actor to really assist as much as I can in the audience's ability to suspend disbelief. So when I'm performing these feats of incredible strength, I want there to be a little bit of that physicality there. I want to look powerful and feel powerful on the day when I'm performing, so that that kind of translates to the screen and the audience is able to immerse themselves in the story. Essentially what it boiled down to is me putting a lot of pressure on myself to achieve, I guess, a certain level of physical transformation, and I didn't really have much time to do that. So there's been an adjustment of expectations over the years. Essentially, again, Greg Walker, I asked him that initial phone call, so do you want me to work out? What kind of shape should I be in? And he really didn't put any pressure on me at all. He was like, oh, you can if you like. And, he was very kind. He wasn't really willing to put any pressure on me at all. But I took it upon myself. Luckily, a family friend of mine, a friend of my dad's, is a former professional bodybuilder. So went to him for help. He agreed to help me out, and he started training me every day and instructing me on what to eat, and essentially just involved a lot of lifting heavy weights and eating the right foods. And over the seasons, I've kind of got that down to a science now, and I feel like there's a moment in season 4 coming up where you do really see, I guess, the fruition of all my hard work. I'm very proud of that scene, without really giving anything away. But season 4 is the best shape I've been in for Connor, and it's kind of the shape that I wish I was in since the beginning, really. I didn't really have the time or the knowledge to kind of fulfill that. So I'm not really sure how much detail you want me to go into.
No, it's fine. It's fine. To be honest, though,
yeah.
to be honest, though, you're Australian, so you've got good genes straight away. Because literally, Australians, they only have to get up from the sofa and they've got a 6-pack. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of like, it can't be that hard. Look at Chris Hemsworth and the rest of the Brat Pack, as I call them. So season 3.
I don't know if I'm a fan of Chris Hemsworth being the standard set for all Australians. I think there's a tough one to live up to.
Oh, who would you say then is the standard for Australians? Would you
just in terms of physicality? I just think it's an unfair comparison, because if everybody thinks that we're walking around, down here in Australia looking like Chris Hemsworth, then I don't think there's much hope for us, to be honest.
Hugh Jackman.
Well, Hugh Jackman's a terrific actor and a hero of mine, but in equally impressive shape, especially when he's playing Wolverine. So I think that's...
and he's going to play Wolverine again.
Sorry?
And he's going to play Wolverine again. I cannot believe it, which I cannot wait.
I'm very excited.
So we're talking about now special effects, because in season 3 we see you do everything you can as Connor to save Hank, and I think one of the most tense scenes was the countdown, and you rush in and he explodes, and the special effects in that scene is incredible. What is it like to film something like that and then watch it on screen in all its glory?
It's frankly, it's hilarious, because the reality of filming that scene on the day, I have to walk into a room just as I'm witnessing Hank explode in front of my face. There's fire everywhere. It's a very serious, intense moment. I've just missed him. I'm just about to save him, and it just blows up in my face. And what I'm doing on the day is walking into a room, which is just a set. There's really nothing going on. Everything's in perfect order. Nothing's obviously exploded or degraded or on fire. I'm stepping into a room and there's a cameraman, Joe, who's got a shoulder-mounted camera. He's standing on one of those Segway things that wheel you around. He's wheeling towards me, doing a 360 around me, where meanwhile another guy kind of below my feet is holding up a giant fan like this to blow wind at me, so it looks like my hair's kind of flying from the explosion. And everything is shot within about 3 seconds, because I think the final product was slow motion, so they shoot it in high frames per second. So it goes like that, but in the show it's kind of spread out and dramatic and slow motion. So I've got to kind of fit in all these little emotional reactions into this tiny little 3 second window of time where there's a guy on a Segway flying around and there's a guy with a fan and there's a bunch of other people doing various things. And I guess I'll just say that it's a very good exercise for the imagination in that moment.
It's an awesome scene, but I've got to say, the special effects in this show is awesome. It really is. I mean, shows now have become like mini movies. Each episode, has got that quality, which I think's fantastic. So let's talk about season 4, because literally I'm so excited. I really am, because season 3, left us, without certain people, and it's left a lot of questions, I think, going into season 4. So we've got season 4 coming up on the 3rd of November. So are you looking forward, because we get some new villains, so are you looking forward to maybe exploring the vulnerable side of Connor? Because these villains, they do look like they're not going to be messing about. So, I mean, from an actor's point of view, you've got a bit more meat to the bone this season. So, are you looking forward to that?
Oh yeah, these villains are incredibly formidable and powerful, and they deal in magic and the occult. And as you know, Kryptonians notoriously have a weakness to magic, and Connor's no exception to that. So it was great to finally, it felt like, have a villain that could really go up against Connor and not only hold their own, but really, frankly, kick his ass, which is what happens. And I'm glad it does, because it's about time he was humbled. It feels like every physical confrontation he's ever been in, he's really stood no chance of really losing, unless someone pulls out a dirty trick like Dick Grayson with the kryptonite powder in season 3, which I don't think counts, because that was just rude. Yeah, absolutely. Though we needed this vulnerability from him, and seeing him come to terms with that vulnerability and that weakness, and maybe I'm not as strong as I thought I was. That's interesting for a character that really perceives himself to be invincible. So I was excited to explore that, and I'm excited for the audience to see that.
I mean, it's great. I mean, when you said earlier on, Connor, in theory, is about five years old, so he's very new to the world. And as we saw in season 3, he's experiencing different emotions, and it's really nice to see Connor grow on screen with these situations and what he does with those, because obviously, he's got 2 dads. He's got Superman and Lex, and we all want him to stay on the Superman side of things, but it's quite intriguing to to experience the Lex side. And talking about Lex, we get to see Lex on screen in season 4, and the actor in question, oh my days, how amazing does he look? I mean, I presume that we're going to see scenes with you and Lex, with Titus. I just think he's an awesome actor from Bosch. What's he like to work with, and what do we have to expect? Well, what do we have to look forward to with you and Lex in season 4?
Yeah, Titus Welliver, so happy that he agreed to play this part, because he's exceptional. He brings such a gravitas and a power to this role that personally, as a fan, I feel has been lacking from live action for quite a while. And this version of Lex that he plays in Titan season 4, for me, is my favorite live action version, and it's very exciting to see Connor get to interact with him. They do meet, things happen. I can't really say what. I can't really give you any more information than that. But you'll have to watch it. Yeah, it's a tough one to talk about without giving away spoilers. But obviously, that character, there's been a big build-up, and we're picking up those story threads that we established way back in season 2 when we first introduced Superboy, and we're developing those ideas, and we'll have to see where it leads come November 3rd.
Don't you just love NDAs? They're great. Literally, you do these interviews and you must have this voice in the back of your head going, no, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't say that. You're going to be in trouble. No, that is fine. So what has been the most challenging part for you during season 4? As an actor with your character of Connor?
Most challenging thing. That's a tough one. I've had such a blast on season 4. I feel like I was let off the leash in many ways, and what I'm talking about will become apparent, especially once the first 6 episodes are out, the first half of the season this year. But I really just had so much fun with it. None of it really felt like hard work. It all felt like an opportunity to play and be creative and develop ideas that we'd already kind of touched on, but kind of delve deeper into those. And I mean, there were some long days, there were some tricky locations, but it's all part of the fun, really. I think, without spoiling it, there was one day which I found particularly grueling, where it's all of us together. It's all of the Titans, plus Jinx at that point. We're in a room, we're talking. It just so happens that for this scene, I didn't have any lines. Connor's just kind of there listening to what everyone's saying. And because there's so many people in the room, we need to get a camera on every individual actor, and that takes all day. So there was that one day where I was kind of just standing there listening to everyone talk for an entire day. That's tough because you want to be involved, but
well, you know what? You can make your eyebrows do the acting, and you can upstage everyone, because it's not about the words, is it? It's about you being present there on screen, which is all awesome. So there were some rumours, and I don't know if you can say or not, because there were some rumours about a potential crossover with Stargirl, and then sadly today we've had the news that Stargirl is actually being stopped after season 3. So there's no more Stargirl after season 3. That I think the finale is shown on the 7th of December, which is very, very disappointing. But there was a photo of Stargirl, good old Breck, with Gar, and Jeff Johns, and a wonderful director there, Eric Dean Seaton. I mean, is there a chance that Stargirl could be appearing in the Titans, or can you not say?
Is there a chance? Yeah, there's a chance. I mean, there's a chance of anything happening, really. In the multiverse, there's a variety of things that could happen, that could eventuate. As I'm answering this question, I get the sense that there's a small red dot appearing on my forehead somewhere.
Your NDA is bubbling away. It's ready to. Yeah. It's on a countdown. It's on a countdown.
I can neither confirm nor deny, unfortunately. But I'm very sorry to hear that Stargirl's not going any further. That's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, it is, because it was Jeff Johns' baby, and I just can't believe it, and it's really disappointing. It really is. But we've had 3 great seasons. It's a great cast, great story. But yeah, it's disappointing, but we've got to enjoy it while it lasts. So have you kept anything from production? so far from season 2 onwards as like a keepsake?
Oh, yes, I have. It's a shame that
Yes.
I haven't chosen to conduct this interview in my upstairs area where I have all my collectibles. But there's a few things, yeah. Season four, I got to. I'll just be vague about it because if I went into specifics, it'd give away plot points. So I got to keep one of my costumes, which was very exciting. Um, I got to. Yeah. This is tough because if I were to tell you what they were, then they might raise certain questions. Um, let's just say that ever since I was cast in this role, I have gone out of my way to collect anything of note or value or remotely connected to Superboy or Superman wherever possible. So I've got a whole room full of little knickknacks and collectibles that, keepsakes that I'll just hang on to for probably forever.
That is fine. I'm exactly the same. I've got an original crystal from the original Superman movie that was in the Fortress of Solitude, which my wife keeps
That's
on
very
trying to get me to sell, and I'm like, no, that is going
absolutely.
to be with me till my last days. So you recently went to New York Comic Con. Was this your first Comic Con that you've ever been to?
It's the first one that I've been to in an official capacity. So I've been to a couple of others, local ones in Australia, one in Perth, one in Melbourne. I was actually working at the Perth one as a representative for a trampoline company, of all things, selling
Wow,
trampolines.
how things change.
Um, yeah, I remember when I was supposed to be working, spruiking these trampolines, I snuck off into a conference hall to listen to Brent Spiner talk about Star Trek: The Next Generation. That was my first Comic Con. I'm a big fan of that show and of him, so that was fun. Um, Melbourne, we had a Comic Con here called Supernova. I kind of went to that as just for fun, not in any official capacity. But yes, New York was my first American Comic Con and my first time going with the show, and it was truly an unforgettable experience to be able to go to that as part of Titans and with a couple of my co-stars to talk about the new season and interacting with fans and getting to show off some clips and talk about the new season. So it was just really I think it was probably a once in a lifetime thing for me.
And how bizarre must that feel that you used to go to conventions and you used to go round, and now you've got no chance in hell in going round a convention as a convention goer anymore because literally you must get recognised. I presume you get recognised a lot in Australia. People think it's this land far, far away, but I'm sure you get recognised now.
Every now and then, every now and then, but it's not obtrusive, and every time it happens, it's delightful. The people that I meet, they just want to say hi, and it's cool to chat to people about the show who are enthusiastic, and I always really love meeting people. Comic Cons, though, one of the places where you can kind of just put on a red hood mask and walk around, and no one asks any questions. So
Mm.
if you want to be anonymous, you can.
So there we go. If you see a red hood going round a convention, you know it's Joshua. There you go. You've just had it.
I have to get into this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So season 4, cannot wait. Without your NDA blowing up in our faces, what can the fans expect? How wild is the ride going to be for season 4?
Oh, it's a wild ride. These characters absolutely go through it this season. We're going to see all of the characters, all of the Titans have a beautifully fulfilled, interesting, dynamic character arc for the season. For my money, it's the best season we've ever made. It's my personal favorite season we've ever made. There's a lot for Connor in there, so I do have a strong bias, but regardless, I'm very excited for the season to come out, and I'm just aching to hear what people think of this season because I think that they're going to love it.
Excellent. And my last question is the same question I ask all my guests. If your life was a movie, Joshua, what title would it have?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I wish I had some lead-in time for this question. I could have thought of something clever. If my life was a movie, I'd call it... Oh gosh, we're going to have to edit out the pause here while I think of an answer.
That is fine. I can edit out whatever you want. Do you know what? I'm going to edit it so literally you answer within half a second, and people are going to be like, "Wow, this guy is super fast in real life."
Incredible. Yeah, incredible. I'd probably call it something ridiculous. I'd probably call it something so wacky and far-fetched and referential that people would have to watch it only for them to put it on and realize it's actually not that good. Like, I'd call it Electric Boogaloo: The Quest for Peace.
I would watch that. That sounds like a cool...
What is this?
It sounds like a cool indie movie. You know what I mean?
It sounds like a movie. It sounds like something.
No, that's great. Joshua, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for coming onto the show all the way from Melbourne in Australia. And season 4, I cannot wait. I really can't. Look after yourself, keep safe, and stay super, as I always say.
Thank you very much. Thank you.